Hello, I'm Morg, and in this video I'm going to review the United States Navy's Tier 5 destroyer, the Nicholas. Just Alt-tabbed for a second to fix my ping, which is why the video froze for a bit there. But anyway, back to the Nicholas. This is the first in a series of improved designs for the US destroyers that you'll be playing with for the next little bit in the US tech tree, at least if you're going up this line, and I'm sure that you will love them. This may be a short video, however, as the Nicholas class is a paper ship. There is therefore very little history to talk about. From my videos on the Wicks and the Clemson, it will be recalled that the US Navy was generally dissatisfied with the quality of its destroyers. The Americans wanted longer range, better firepower, better seakeeping and agility, as well as better anti-submarine performance. However, they chose to mass-produce the imperfect Clemson and Wicks classes rather than go to the trouble of building a new design. That doesn't mean that the work wasn't going on behind the scenes to design a better destroyer, however. There were a series of designs produced between 1916 and 1919. The largest of these designs forms the basis for the Nicholas, and it would have actually been a drastic improvement over the Clemson. 5-inch guns with the Clemson had 4-inch, it was 2 knots faster, more AA guns, more depth charges, more agile, longer range, just better overall than the Clemson. It was also more than twice the weight of the Clemson, which would have made the Nicholas a very expensive ship to build. In fact, it was such a large ship that it would have been in breach of the treaties on naval disarmament in the 1920s and 30s if it had been built. But this design was finalised after the Great War ended, so considering that the US government was starting to scrap a number of the destroyers that they'd just built over the previous few years, it isn't surprising that they chose not to build any examples of this ship. The design did get a second lease on life in the 1930s, where it formed the basis of the Farragut class of destroyers, although with considerable changes to bring it within treaty limits and update it for more than a decade's technological development. In World of Warships, the Nicholas is a huge improvement over the Clemson. The first thing you'll notice is the much improved guns. The Nicholas's guns are 5 inches compared to 4 inches of the Clemson, which means more damage per hit. They also get a higher rate of fire and a range of 10.9 kilometers, so you will definitely notice an improvement, even if there is one less gun on the full broadside when you're stock. Your stocker gets 5 guns, however guns number 2 and 3 get very poor firing arcs to the back and front respectively. Upgrading the hull trades gun 3 out for 1100 more hit points, a 3.5 second rate of shift time, dual purpose guns, an increase to fire chance, and more AA guns. So I was more than happy to make that trade, particularly since gun 3 is only any good when you are either broadside onto your target or running away. Other than the firing arcs, the only real weakness with the guns on the ship is the poor fire chance, 4% stock and 5% when fully upgraded. This is actually less than on the Clemson, even though you've got bigger shells, although the higher rate of fire mitigates the fire chance poorness to a significant degree. On the other hand, the torpedoes actually get worse going from the Clemson to the Nicholas. They are the same Mark 11 torpedoes as on the Clemson, so they have the same inadequate 5.5 km range and the subpar 56 knot speed. But they actually take longer to reload on the Nicholas than on the Clemson, so if you miss a torpedo attack in the Nicholas, you're in a bit of trouble. It will be 66 seconds until you can try again. The anti-aircraft guns on the Nicholas are actually decent. This is the first US destroyer to get good AA guns, although this will actually be a characteristic of the rest of the line. When fully upgraded, the 127mm guns are able to shoot at aircraft. They do not fire very fast for AA guns, so you aren't likely to shoot things down with them, but they can fire out to 5 km without upgrades, which gives you an ability to escort your allies. The Nicholas also gets 8, whoa, and detonation. So well, that Omaha kind of had a good game just before it died, but I've been doing pretty alright up to then. Unfortunately I didn't put the anti-detonation flag on this ship. So let's show you another game. What was I saying? Anti-aircraft guns. The Nicholas gets 8 28mm anti-aircraft guns, which actually have a decent range of 3.1 kilometers and decent damage output. So they're kind of your main anti-aircraft weapons. I should also say that's, when fully upgraded, they replace your third gun. And they also get 6 heavy machine guns, which do a lot of damage within 1.2 kilometers. So they give you, those combinations of guns, they give you a decent chance of shooting down a plane or two if you are attacked or an enemy squadron flies overhead, provided it's a tier 4 or 5 squadron. The Nicholas can also use the defensive fire consumable to further improve the AA escorting ability of the ship. However, you have to choose between this and the speed boost, and I find the speed boost incredibly useful, so I very rarely went out with defensive fire. In terms of manoeuvrability, the Nicholas is about the same as the Clemson. When fully upgraded, it has a 3.5 second rudder time and a 600 meter turning radius with a 37 knot top speed. The speed is the only significant improvement. Like the Clemson, the ship turns slowly and loses a lot of speed in turns. This tendency is exacerbated by the huge size of the ship. For a destroyer, it's quite a big target, and it doesn't really seem like the extra 3,000-ish hit points you get coming from the Clemson really makes up for the increase in size. What you do get though is more range, which means you can be further away from your targets, and therefore have a bit more time to dodge their shots. Still, being hit is a fact of life in the ship, and you will really appreciate the 13,100 hit point pool of the Nicholas. The ship is not particularly stealthy. It will be detected by ships at 6.7 kilometers and aircraft at 3.1 kilometers. This means that you will need to press the P button to turn your AA guns off if you are trying to stay hidden and aircraft are coming your way. 6.7 kilometers isn't a bad detection range for a tier 5 destroyer. For comparison, the Minakaze gets 6 kilometers, but 6.7 isn't enough for the Nicholas to do stealth torpedo attacks or to have a real good chance at firing at enemy ships without being spotted. Firing adds about 4 kilometers to your detection range, which gives the Nicholas about a 200 meter margin for firing without being spotted. I think that's really all you need to know about this ship, so let's get on to tactics. But first, my statistics in the ship, so you can judge how much weight to give my opinion. I played 46 battles with a 60.87% win rate. On average, I did 41,000 damage, sunk 1.37 ships, and shot down 0.57 aircraft in a battle. The one big thing to note, though, is that I only survived less than 1 game in 4. That's significantly worse than my survival rate in the Clemson, and probably accounts for why I had a slightly lower win rate in this ship than I did in the Clemson. Actually, it was pretty significantly lower. Anyway, tactically, the Nicholas plays very similarly to the earlier ships in this line. Your guns are still your primary weapon, and to use them effectively, you will have to stay back around your maximum range. The Nicholas is a big target, so even at long range, try not to sail in a straight line or present your broadsides to enemies. You are reliant on starting fires to do damage to enemies, and with your rate of fire you will get fires eventually, but won't be getting fires every broadside, or even every second broadside. It's still important to focus fire with your allies, so that when your target uses its repair ability, your team has the best chance of starting more fires. I'm not doing it right now because I feel bad shooting at that Chester while the rest of my team is quite happy firing away. Instead, I'm shooting at the New Mexico behind it. That's just, I don't really want to bully a tier 2 player more than I have to. At the start of the game, the Nicholas should do the standard destroyer thing and rush forward to the cap circles or to scouts. The Nicholas is actually the slowest destroyer at this tier, so it may not be the first to get to a neutral cap circle, but at close ranges is the best at killing destroyers, so it's pretty good at contesting them and taking them away from enemy destroyers. Well, yeah. That's at close range. At medium to long ranges, I would pick the Gnevny as the better destroyer killer, only because its guns have better shell angles. Shells fire on a much flatter trajectory, so they'll reach you quicker and you'll have less time to dodge. After the initial cap contest, the Nicholas actually works best as an escort ship, at least in my opinion. It can screen against any destroyers trying to sneak up for a torpedo attack and really make them suffer for coming so close. It adds a bit of AA cover, and can add a bit of firepower to your allied fleet. Unfortunately, the average manoeuvrability and large size of the Nicholas makes it an easy kill if it is focused down even at 8 to 10 kilometers range. In retrospect, I actually played this ship a bit too aggressively, and it really doesn't do well without having a couple of battleships or cruisers nearby to provide fire support, which is actually the opposite of how I think I did in the Wicks and the Clemson. The Wicks in particular, I thought I just didn't play aggressively enough, get to the Nicholas and suddenly I'm too aggressive. It's just different ships, so I should have slightly different playstyles, but I have the same playstyle on every ship, more or less. I barely use the torpedoes on this ship. With the size of the Nicholas and the 5.5 kilometer range, they're only really useful for ambush attacks. And I just didn't get very many opportunities to do that because I tended to hang around about 10 kilometers away from enemies. And even if I did get a decent chance in an ambush attack, the torpedoes are kind of slow, so there's an good chance the enemies are going to avoid them unless it's at point blank range. The big threats at tier 5 to the Nicholas are the Gnevny, the Omaha and the Königsberg. The Kirov may also be a threat, but I haven't played against it enough to be sure. The Omaha and the Königsberg both have the firepower and rate of fire to wreck you very quickly if they spot you, and you're close enough. The Gnevny also has decent guns. As I said earlier, it's probably the best anti-destroyer ship at this tier at medium to long ranges. But it's also faster than you, so you'll struggle to escape from it, and it should be able to keep the range at where it wants it, which is probably around 7 or 8 kilometers away from you. You will struggle to hit it at that range, whereas it will have absolutely no trouble hitting you. The only real way to deal with those ships is to set your smoke screen and pull back to get your allies to drive them off for you, hopefully kill them, but at least drive them off. Conversely, the ships you really want to encounter in the Nicholas are the Minakaze aircraft carriers and unescorted battleships. The Minakaze stands no hope in a gunfight against the Nicholas, except for a lucky torpedo. Against large ships you can fire at your maximum range or close to it with a very high chance of hitting. Start fires and watch them burn while having very little chance of being struck by return fire, provided you try and avoid being hit. However, once cruisers or destroyers arrive, you kind of have to pull back and focus on them if you want to stay alive. And that about sums up what I have to say about the Nicholas. It's a very fun ship to play, although the large size can make it a bit unforgiving. However, when you go from the Nicholas at tier 5 up to the Farragut at tier 6, the big difference is that Farragut's significantly smaller than the Nicholas, which means it gets less hit points, but it is much harder to hit, and in my opinion, it's an even more fun ship to play. And I'll just finish out this game. So far, my team's losing, but not badly. We are being forced back on this flank. Well, the enemy team has a battleship and we don't, and the enemy team are pushing aggressively. Well, we are not. The enemy team does also have a Chester here, which is a bit of a liability. I believe those are probably the first shots that's fired this game. I still don't really want to shoot the Chester, but I don't actually have any other targets to shoot at the moment. As you see, we've actually done good work against that battleship. It's got very low hit points. The Chester's almost dead as well. The enemy Karlsruhe's still got full hit points, but we've been focus firing, so that's not that surprising. There's also a Mutsuki around nearby. It's almost dead, so things aren't actually looking too badly on this flank. However, on the other flank, my team is pushing up pretty aggressively, but they've taken some pretty significant losses over there. And they haven't actually killed much in the way of enemy ships. Or, well, not really enough to justify those losses they've taken. The Chester's almost dead and I'm trying to finish it off, but it gets behind the island just in time to avoid my shell fire. I dodge some fire from the Karlsruhe. Swing my guns around. The Karlsruhe is going to be my target now since the New Mexico's behind the island. And unfortunately, the poor agility of the Nicholas here is about to come into play. I'm firing away at the Karlsruhe, doing a little bit of damage. It starts turning, so I start missing. The trajectory on these guns aren't great. And then I see I'm about to run aground, so I turn towards the Karlsruhe to avoid the island. I do not want to run aground this close to it. I popped my smoke screen up because I want to be basically undetected, but I've gotten painfully close to this Karlsruhe, so decided to fire my torpedoes. Continue firing my gun as well. I'm in the smoke screen kind of, so hopefully it won't see me, but basically I'm just trying to disengage at this point. Sends a couple of shells my way, and it gets a hit. And I've lost about half my hit points so far in this match. But I've almost done 100 hits on the enemy, started a few fires, and in this match I actually do about an equal damage with my fires as I do with my shells. Send a few more torpedoes its way, but it's kind of unlikely to hit. The Karlsruhe's got plenty of time to dodge, and as you see it's already turned, so it will already dodge them. Continue to do a bit of damage with my guns. I'm behind the smoke screen now, so it's not going to be able to see me. I did 1700 damage with that broadside, 1400 with that one. These 5-inch shells are very powerful. Here's that Mutsuki from earlier. Get a few more hits on it. And that broadside misses, and it's gone behind the island now. I think I get one more hit. No more hits on the Mutsuki, but it's still on very low health. And the Karlsruhe is the last enemy ship left on this flank. My team have finished off the Chester and the New Mexico. And again, I'm still behind my smoke screen I laid earlier, so it can't see me at this point. Or it's just spotted me. Actually, it's probably the Mutsuki there that spotted me. I'm going to have one chance to hit the Mutsuki. And one hit, 333 damage, leaves it on a tiny little bit of health. Karlsruhe just sunk one of my allied ships there, but the Karlsruhe is dead. And it's now a 4-on-4 match. There's that Mutsuki kind of just behind that island, so we should be able to kill that one pretty quickly, hopefully before the rest of the enemy team shows up. And it'll be 4-on-3, and we ought to have a decent chance here. My other allied destroyer's got pretty low health, but it's about the same as me. The cruiser on my team's got tons of health, and the aircraft carrier doesn't have any fighters, I don't believe, but still got a decent bombers if it had any fighters to start with. So this is pretty alright for us. I would prefer... Well, I should also say that the cruiser we've got left is a Furutaka, the enemy cruiser is a Svetlana, so the Furutaka should win that fight. So my team's basically got the advantage going into this fight. See enemy dive bombers coming, I decide to focus my anti-aircraft guns on them. Basically I was hoping that once they spotted me, the Mutsuki would shoot at me, and then I'd be able to kill the Mutsuki. I don't want to go racing around that island because I have a feeling I will get torpedoed at point blank range. And yep, there's the Mutsuki, it was probably just waiting for me. And now this is interesting, I wrecked the Mutsuki's engine, do 594 damage here, 200 there, leave it on 100 and odd hit points. And now I just keep hitting it, and just not doing any damage. And missed it. 2 more hits, no damage. And there we go, finally get the kill. And the enemy aircraft are flying right over me and around me, and my anti-aircraft guns are firing away. But these are tier 6 bombers, which means they're quite durable. I have a very low chance of shooting one down because of it, and I just don't get lucky enough to kill any. And basically at the moment, I'm kind of looking at the scores, my team's ahead by a little bit thanks to killing that destroyer. And I was thinking of rushing down to capture the enemy base, but then an enemy Minakaze shows up on the other side of the cap circle. I decide we'll do the same thing, we'll all concentrate on that Minakaze, and that Kamikaze has no health. I thought it had some, but obviously I was wrong. So anyway, go forward, we'll gang up on the Minakaze, and hopefully we can knock it out of the game and then deal with the enemy cruiser when it shows up. I actually speak of the devil, and here's the Svetlana. So Svetlana's got a lot of health, roughly the same as my allied Furutaka. But as I said, the Furutaka's got much bigger guns, it's much better at killing cruisers than the Svetlana, so the advantage is with us, especially since we've got 2 destroyers, while the enemy team only has 1. Here's the Minakaze. I want to knock this guy out of the game as quickly as I can. But it's behind the island, so I'm not going to get any hits. The Svetlana's shooting at me. I thought about popping my smoke screen there, but decided I could actually get behind my allies' smoke screen quickly enough. bad call in the end, I think. The Svetlana fires pretty accurately, and it gets a few broadsides into me while I'm escaping. And it's also agile enough at this range it can avoid most of my fire. I tried to get a broadside off at the Minakaze there, but still behind the island. Take a big hit from the Svetlana, which sets me on fire. But I should be behind the smoke screen now and unspotted, but for some reason it can still see me. Must be the Minakaze. So I decided to set my own smoke screen. But as you see, I'm on critically low health at this point, and I also decided to basically stop. The aircraft carrier's aircraft and the kamikaze on my team will continue to spot the Svetlana for me, but while I'm in the smoke I'm hidden, and I can essentially get a bunch of free shots here at it. I managed to take out its engines, but it starts turning away from me, and the Svetlana's kind of an agile ship. And as you see, it's taking 8 seconds for my shells to arrive. That's a lot of time for the Svetlana to dodge, even if it does have a wrecked engine. I still get... oh, actually, I landed right around that ship, but didn't hit it. That broadside went a bit long. And you might notice that I'm not getting any fire support from my allied cruiser against the Svetlana. It was actually busy off trying to finish off the Minakaze, but the Minakaze actually took it out. So now it is myself and the kamikaze, both on ridiculously low health, against this 2/3 health Svetlana. Kind of just bad luck there on the part of our cruiser. I'm guessing it just took a torpedo from the Minakaze. But, well, it happens. And, like I said, the Svetlana still hasn't spotted us. Our carrier comes in, should have finished it off, but it dropped its torpedoes too close, so does no damage. I've managed to start a fire on the Svetlana there, which looks like it's going to do a fair bit of damage. It probably just used its repairability to fix its engine, so that fire is going to burn for a little while, but it's starting to close in now, and I think my smoke screen's long since gone. I was actually firing at it blind for a little while, so I chose to get in behind the island here. The other destroyer on my team has been killed, so once I go behind the island we lose sight of the Svetlana. And basically I'm thinking the only hope we have of winning here is if I can hide behind this island and torpedo it as it comes around the corner. Unfortunately, our aircraft carrier is sitting still, so while it's spotting the Svetlana here, the Svetlana will also be spotting it, if not now, at least fairly soon. And, well, it's already firing at the aircraft carrier, and that's the only ally I've got. In this situation, the aircraft carrier doesn't really need to spot for me. It's got aircraft that can do the spotting. The aircraft carrier should be trying to run away. So I'm waiting for the Svetlana to come around the corner. I have an opportunity now, so I swing my ship around to get my torpedoes on target. I'm trying to get to go closer, but the Svetlana is clearly turning away. I decide I'm going to take my chance, because I figure I can always swing around and fire the torpedoes on the other side of my ship. And the Svetlana starts turning in, so I might get lucky here. And I decide that basically I'm going to come around the other side of the island while its guns are pointing the other way, and finish it off while the aircraft carrier is distracting it. But it finishes off the aircraft carrier before I can. Unfortunately now, I don't actually have the space to turn around and fire the torpedoes on the other side of my ship without taking at least one broadside from the Svetlana, which would almost certainly kill me. So, well, I decided I'm going to have to just kind of stall for time. It's still about 20 seconds till my torpedoes reload, 20 seconds now. And I might be able to get turned around here, but unfortunately heading away from me, my torpedoes won't actually reach the Svetlana in time. So my team's behind on points. Basically, we're going to lose this. Even if I kill this cruiser, we're probably still going to lose. But I decided I'm going to have a go for it. Just get out there, have a bit of luck, do 1100 with my first broadside. It's pretty good. It takes out my rear gun though, and unfortunately my dodging doesn't really dodge that much, and it means that my forward guns can't fire on the target now. Made a bit of a mistake, they probably should turn the other way, but as I said, we were going to lose that anyway. There was very little I could do at that point in the game. I can't remember the points exactly, but I think it was such that if I had have sunk that cruiser, we would still have been behind on points, and we would have lost in about 6 seconds through points. But a bit of a sad result for my last game in the Nicholas, but it's still a pretty fantastic ship, and I really recommend playing it. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, found it entertaining or interesting or informative, and I'll see you all next time.